Hi, everyone. Cynthia Marcus here, registered social worker and therapist. I am talking today about mom rage. It has been a hot topic lately. I'm finding it comes up in a lot of conversations, and I think it's particularly hard because it's not a good look, right? Like, mom guilt is like, oh, I'm not doing enough for my kids, and it can be heavy and hard, but I think it also has like a bit of that mom savior vibe to it, which is socially acceptable, right? A mom screaming at her kids, less so. And then we often feel a lot of shame when we lose it for whatever reason. I'm here to say it's really common. Of course, I don't encourage, regular screaming at children, but I lose my temper at my kids. And there's a lot of I have my own reasons for that. We all have our own reasons for it, based oftentimes just on kind of how we were raised, our personalities, what we've seen around us, different relational dynamics. It can be really complicated to discover where this comes from. Um, so I thought I would, obviously, we can't untangle all of that in a little chat, but I thought it might be helpful to kind of uh, share a couple of thoughts, tips to think about with your own experience with anger, because it can help us understand ourselves a bit better and start to shift some of those patterns. So I think a big one is there's definitely, if you're postpartum, if it's like earlier days with an infant, not even earlier, like it could be within months, even a couple of years, like it's not, postpartum doesn't end at 1 year. It can really continue on. But I bring that up because becoming a mother, the hormonal changes, the biology behind it can really have an impact on how our brains and bodies experience the world around us. And sometimes understanding that can sort of put some context to it. Like, why am I suddenly so angry? There's a biological aspect to it. Understanding it and working with it can help. Another point that I think is really helpful for us to understand is this concept of the iceberg theory of anger. So there's this idea that, like icebergs, where you can only see the tip above the surface and there's so much beneath the water, anger functions really similarly. It's often the thing at the surface. My snapping, my temper, my irritability is what you see, but underneath is usually a whole slew of other emotions that are really behind that reaction. And it could be things like anxiety, fear, loneliness, frustration, a disappointment, a resentment. Like, it could be anything. And I mean, those are the words that popped into my head because I feel like they're like the mom struggle is like a lot of this sense of kind of loneliness or resentment or feeling unappreciated can really be quite present in a lot of moms' lives. And so if there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on beneath the surface, it's not uncommon to see a lot of irritability, anger. And it's not an excuse, right? Like, that's not, but it's okay to feel those things. And if we understand what we're feeling and why we're feeling it, then we can start to work with it differently and try to um, not dismiss our own feelings, not just push past them, but actually understand and work with them and find ways to cope and rejig our lives if we can to minimize some of those patterns that contribute to this dynamic. So that's just a couple of tips I thought I'd share. I really wanted to validate that this is a real struggle for a lot of moms. And of course, this is just scratching the surface. If you're interested in some more support to figure out kind of what your struggles, where they may come from, what feelings might be underneath your anger, then individual counseling can be really helpful for that. I'm available if anybody would like to connect with me, and there's lots of other therapists that do similar work. So feel free to be in touch if you'd like, and I hope this was helpful. Take care.